This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Health officials using both traditional Chinese and Western medicine to treat patients infected by the coronavirus. Portable ultrasound scanner expected to help lower maternal mortality rates in Uganda. And how Algerians are coping with the effects of harmful radiation decades after France conducted nuclear tests in that country. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Vivian. I'll be with you for the next hour. But here for your business headlines is Rama.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Somalia is one step closer to getting debt relief for its $5.3 billion debt load. And headline inflation in Sudan has hit 64.25% in January, up from just over 57% at the end of 2019. We'll have the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, though, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Hannah.
Thank you so much, Rama. We'll see you in a bit. But for now, we begin with the coronavirus or COVID-19 outbreak, as it is now known. In China, the total number of confirmed cases is approaching 64,000. More than 1,300 people have died from the virus. Nearly 7,000 have recovered. In central China's Wuhan city, the number of new cases stands at over 3,900, a sharp decline from Wednesday when Hubei province started including results from both clinical diagnosis and lab testing. Guangdong, Zhejiang, and Henan provinces are the most affected areas outside Hubei. Each has reported more than 1,000 cases. Beijing has reported more than 370 infections and Shanghai over 310. The virus is spread to 24 other countries with more than 510 cases confirmed. One person has died in Japan, where there are 253 cases. Most of these cases are those on a quarantined cruise ship and are not included in the World Health Organization's figures for that country. Well, they might be called makeshift hospitals, but the 7 now open in Wuhan have provided much needed treatment for over 400 COVID-19 patients. Aside from some stigmas circulated on social media, little is known about what goes on inside these medical centers. CGTN reporter Gay Yunfei takes us inside one to show how patients are doing.
Wuhan's 7 makeshift hospitals are the city's newest lifeline. They are often referred to as the most important medical centers in town for treating the mildly ill COVID-19 patients. But speculation surrounds them on social media. This is the Wuhan International Convention Center, one of the first makeshift hospitals, opened since February 4th. On the 10th, when I first visited the 1,000-bed hospital, there was already a wait to get admitted.
一些担心吧，因为这里毕竟就是说，我感觉我身体是可能现在是在恢复期的，就是我也害怕在这里可能比我严重的一些人会感染。
25-year-old Miss Shen has been put in isolation in a hotel. She says here she can at least get better medical care.
就是我们在酒店隔离，不可能核酸试剂检查什么的，不可能做的那么及时，所以我们不可能实时的知道。
78-year-old Hu Xueliang has been in this hospital since day one.
看网上很多人说方舱条件不太好，你感觉怎么样？
我感觉还好。
你感觉还行？
哎呀，他说的人说的不一定，都各有各的说法。每个人都有每个人的想法，反正我还可以。我认为自己到这里觉得还是可以，要求还是没得话说的。那我们要求到提出，自然是提起要求的，想让尽量给我们改进。
Most of the people here are mildly ill patients, so they can basically take care of themselves. I met a middle-aged woman who is waiting in line to fetch some hot water.
这里生活方便吗？
还可以，
还可以。
都要相互理解一下。
上厕所方便吗？
还可以吧，就排队嘛。
排队上个厕所要排队都排多长时间呀？
上厕所一般的还好，时间很短。就是打水的时候有点困难。
Days ago, there was a picture of a gentleman waiting calmly in bed here that went viral on the internet. We met the man here. Another middle-aged woman spoke to us on the verge of tears.
这个国家也是费了很大的力气在拯救，但是还是武汉市地方对这个事情还是整治晚。
I'm wearing a protective suit similar to what the doctors and nurses have here. A patient mistook me for his doctor.
特别感谢你们啊！哦，好，我不是大夫啊，我是记者，你要感谢他们。
Mr. Ye is a minority ethnic and Muslim from China's Qinghai province. He was infected during a trip to Wuhan.
清真的全部拿过来了。哦，也有专门的清真餐是吧？专门的清真的给我拿过来了。需要自己解决吗？这个？没，啥都解决好了。餐费需要自己付吗？啊？餐费啊，这是治疗费，需要你自己付钱吗？没有，全部给我包括完了。
Thursday is Ms. Shen's fourth day in the makeshift hospital. I WeChatted her to confirm her situation there. Gu Winfei, CGTN, Wuhan.
The World Health Organization has expressed support for Hubei province's new approach to confirming COVID-19 cases. Its emergency chief, Dr. Michael Ryan, said the new way should allow clinicians to report cases and get people treated more quickly. He explained that doctors in Hubei had begun classifying cases based on chest CT scans alone prior to laboratory confirmations. He said backlogs in testing meant that surge of 14,000 cases should not be seen as indicating a big jump in infections all at once. He said that other parts of China, however, would still need to wait for cases to be confirmed in labs before they could be officially counted.
In Hubei province only, a trained medical professional can now classify a suspected case of COVID-19 as a clinically confirmed case on the basis of chest imaging rather than having to have a laboratory confirmation. This allows clinicians to move and report cases more quickly, not having to wait for lab confirmation, ensuring that people get to clinical care more quickly, and also allows public health responses in terms of contact tracing and other important public health measures to be initiated.
Meanwhile, more than 6,700 people in China have recovered from infections. Let's hear what some of them had to say.
I feel that the new coronavirus pneumonia is not terrifying. As long as we have the confidence to face it with medical care and treatment, people can be discharged quickly, as in the case of a common cold.
Thanks to our party and government, soldiers and army, they are really good, otherwise our lives would have been gone.
After we were hospitalized, the nurses and doctors took great care of us and would prescribe corresponding treatment according to our conditions. My recovery is going well.
The coronavirus epidemic is causing great concern to Chinese people living overseas. The head of Huaxing Art Troupe in Cape Town, Dong Gang, has praised the Chinese government's immediate response to the epidemic. He says that those living in the diaspora are convinced that under the leadership of the Chinese government, China will achieve the ultimate victory in fighting COVID-19.
自从这个新冠病毒爆发之后呢，作为生活在海外的华人华侨呢，我们
The Chinese community in South Africa has been paying attention to this matter since the novel coronavirus outbreak began. We feel that the Chinese government has taken very powerful and effective measures when dealing with the issues concerning the epidemic, whether it's in the form of closing the city in time or changing senior officials at the municipal and provincial committees at critical moments. All this show the determination of the Chinese government in tackling the epidemic and their strong management capabilities.
In Rwanda, one journalist has been following the developments in China very keenly. Hudson Kutiisa once had a chance to visit Wuhan with other African journalists. His memories remain vivid as he follows how the Chinese government is handling the COVID-19 outbreak.
I really think that the government of China is doing well in trying to contain this virus and the measures in place. The world actually is amazed by a lot of things that China has been doing. Constructing two hospitals like from scratch, from nothing, and they construct them on such a high speed so that the people suffering from the virus can be accommodated there and given really good treatment.
Currently, there are about 150 Rwandans in Wuhan. At a recent press conference, the Rwandan government said it had no plans to withdraw them for the time being. It believes that the Chinese government is taking the right measures to contain the spread of the COVID-19, and Hudson attended that press conference and wrote an article about it. He says he's satisfied by the Chinese government's intervention measures. Meanwhile, as China and Nigeria celebrate 49 years of diplomatic relations, the two nations have organized a public dialogue to address the COVID-19 health emergency. The talks are geared towards jointly fighting the ongoing outbreak. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam brings us some of the highlights.
A public health emergency dialogue between Nigeria and China underway in the Nigerian capital, Abuja. Fighting against COVID-19 is at the heart of conversations here. It's coming at a time both countries mark nearly 5 decades of diplomatic cooperation, and they highlight the need for support through the health crisis.
Facts in recent times have shown that this disease is being contained, and we on our side have very little to fear. Our aim today is to find a way to let it known to the rest of our compatriots that Nigeria-China bilateral cooperation is too important to be distracted by coronavirus or any other virus.
So far, more than 64,000 cases have been reported and 1,304 deaths. No case has been confirmed in Nigeria and Africa, and China's ambassador to Nigeria maintains that prevention and control remains his country's top priority.
Guided by the vision of a community with a shared future for mankind, China is fulfilling its responsibility for the life and health of its own people and for global public health. China's effective response has averted the further spread of the virus in the world.
Chinese scientists are making effort to produce vaccines to confront the virus. For the past 49 years, Nigeria and China have remained one of the greatest allies, with around $85 billion in trade between them. One of the reasons why cooperation to end the scourge remains a priority. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Chinese President Xi Jinping says epidemic prevention and control systems must be strengthened. At a meeting of the Central Leading Group for Comprehensively Deepening Reform, President Xi said that combating coronavirus was a big test for the country's governance systems and its ability to govern. He stressed the importance of improving legislation on public health, for example, revising and modifying the Communicable Disease Prevention and Control Law and Wildlife Protection Law. He called for reform in major disease prevention and control systems as well as in response systems. He went on to say that China needed to improve its goods delivery and supply system to ensure essential materials were delivered during the outbreak. Well, health officials say they are using both traditional Chinese and Western medicine to treat patients affected by the COVID-19. In a press conference on Friday, they said more than 2,000 practitioners of traditional Chinese medicine were now in Hubei province. Local health officials also say that over 70% of confirmed patients in the province were receiving traditional treatment. According to them, traditional Chinese medicine can prevent the disease from getting worse, boost the immune system, and alleviate symptoms like coughing, chest congestion, and improve lung function. Well, it's time now for us to take a short break and return. More news, including how Algerians are coping with the effects of harmful radiation decades after France conducted nuclear tests in that country. And portable ultrasound scanner expected to help lower maternal mortality rates in Uganda.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa.
no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
For look at some economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
I'm Ucheoko reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference.
No one again, he can holding guns.
Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
The Excellency, thank you very much for your time now. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching News Making Headlines on Africa Live. Well, it's been 60 years since France first carried out nuclear testing in Algeria, but more than 6 decades on, and locals in Algeria say those tests left a legacy of environmental devastation and health problems. CGTN's Daniela Pearson reports.
Decades on, Azawi Abdallah and Sid Ali Bilal still remember the aftermath from French nuclear weapons testing in the Algerian desert. The local community witnessed overground explosions that took place in Regan in the 60s.
At the time of the nuclear explosion, I was trembling. And believe me, I only remember the dust flying in the sky and the screaming of people.
These experiences have eliminated everything in this region. When we plant our crops, they will never grow because of these inhumane experiments. The Algerian state and the world should pay attention to our real suffering in the name of 1.5 million martyrs.
Medical statistics from the 90s report health issues that can be linked with exposure to nuclear radiation.
Every day, I watch in Regane Hospital horrific cases and injuries, most likely because of the French nuclear tests. Therefore, we focus our efforts on the early diagnosis of cancer. But the lack of capabilities and lack of awareness among citizens makes it difficult.
Experts say the impact from nuclear testing will remain for thousands of years in this region. But of the 51 Algerian claims filed with France's Nuclear Compensation Commission, only one has been compensated.
We are the victims of the glory of France and the victims of French ambition and development. Here in the Regan region, human suffering as a result of these abhorrent nuclear experiments continues.
These nuclear tests only ended 4 years after Algeria gained independence from France. And while the Algerian government restricts access to areas around all test sites, much of the damage has already been done. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
Well, in news just in, there's an unconfirmed report of a suspected coronavirus case in Egypt. For more on this, we are joined on the line from Cairo by CGTN's Adel El Marouchi. Adel, thank you so much for joining us. What more can you tell us about this development in Egypt?
It's just a statement that has been released from the Egyptian Foreign Ministry confirming the first official positive tested coronavirus patient. There is no much details released yet, but what we know for sure so far is that it is a foreigner who has arrived to Egypt from abroad, and it did not specify the country he's coming from, his nationality, whether it's a man or a woman. So there is still a lot to be revealed. However, the statement indicated that when people come to Egypt through the airport from countries that have already announced cases of coronavirus, in Egypt they test excessively the passengers coming from these destinations. And what they've confirmed is that one of the passengers was tested positive even without showing any symptoms of the disease. That's all what we know so far from the health ministry, and we're waiting for further details in the coming hours.
Thank you so much for joining us, Adel El Marouchi, joining us live there from Cairo. And that was news just in that there's an unconfirmed report of a suspected coronavirus case in Egypt. Well, on to other news that's making headlines this hour. International flights over Nigeria and Ghana have been severely disrupted due to bad weather conditions that are hampering visibility. As CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rafah reports, the dry and windy spell, popularly known as Harmattan, is causing travel chaos, with more flights due to be disrupted over the coming days.
The Harmattan, dry and dusty winds that blow from the Sahara Desert at this time of year, is taking its toll.
I wasn't expecting it to stay this long, but it's had a little bit of effect on me personally. I find it difficult to drive because I leave very early for work, and it also affects my health. I find it's difficult to breathe easily, especially at night.
As of now, just having some body pains and just finding it difficult to breathe.
Some say this is the worst Harmattan they have experienced so far this season.
The intense Harmattan is affecting visibility, especially for motorists. Meteorologists say that dusty winds and dry weather pattern will continue until March.
Experts are linking the poor weather being experienced in Ghana to the conditions within the Sahel region.
The pressures are quite high over the Sahel region, and the wind speeds too are quite high. The low-level jets are having a speed of 30 to 60 knots, which is quite intense, very strong. So it's blowing more of the dust. And then from December till now, there hasn't been any rain over the Sahel region, so we have dry atmosphere.
Ghana's neighbor, Nigeria, is facing similar weather conditions. Some international flights bound for Lagos have been diverted to Accra over poor visibility caused by the Harmattan. Meteorologists say operations at Ghana's airports could also be disrupted.
If you have visibilities for Accra less than 1,000, then that means the airport has to be closed down. But if you have more than 1,000, then it's good for any operations to carry on.
Meteorologists say they are monitoring the weather closely. They say some airports in the northern part of Ghana could be shut down to local flights if they continue recording poor visibility. Nabil Ahmed Rafah, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
The Nigerian government has introduced a new visa policy which seeks to put into action the Africa Free Trade Agreement that was signed last year. According to a spokesperson of the Immigration Department, the new rules will spur integration and economic growth. Under the new policy, Africans seeking to travel to Nigeria can now apply for specific visas, which include short visits, temporary visits, and permanent stay.
The essence of free trade is to make sure that there is reciprocal relationship in trade, and there should be a balanced trade and market system, whereby if you are bringing in something to my country, then you should also be able to take out something from the country. So there will be a flow of revenue and gross domestic GDP for the country, and then for the investment a lot of people will come and invest in Nigeria, not because of anything, but because we have a very fertile ground for investment.
Although slavery has long been abolished, the human rights violation continues to surge in Africa and other parts of the world. According to the Global Slavery Index, more than 9 million Africans are currently living as slaves. Nigeria accounts for over 1 million. It's the highest rate of modern-day enslavement in the world. Here's CGTN's Kelechi Emekelam reporting from Nigeria.
14-year-old Nana has been living a life of servitude for the past 3 years. Her full identity is hidden for her safety. She was brought into Abuja, the Nigerian capital, with the promise of getting an education. But Nana is laboring against her will. She must run late-night errands and attend to difficult chores or risk being abused physically.
After my parents' divorce, my father left us. My mother remarried, but the man was not ready to cater for me, so I was sent to live with my grandmother in the village. But the hardship there was too much. My grandmother died, and my aunt brought me to Abuja with the promise of sponsoring me in school. But she did not fulfill her promise. Rather, she mistreats me, locks me up and beats me whenever she gets drunk. I don't want to continue staying with her, but I have nowhere to go.
Like Nana, millions are being forced into labor, sex, human trafficking and domestic servitude. The Global Slavery Index estimates 9.2 million Africans live in enslavement, making Africa the continent with the highest rate of contemporary slavery. In Nigeria alone, an estimated 1.4 million people are trapped in one form of institutional slavery or another. About 90% of them are women and minors. Factors like extreme poverty, corruption, conflict, irregular migration are identified as being responsible for the surge in figures.
The economic conditions in the country like Nigeria, it's something else. I mean, it calls for serious concerns. And for them to survive, they need someone's help, from elsewhere. So what would they do? They would take or give their daughter or their son out to someone else to go and serve. And at the end of the day, you find out that some of these young people are being molested.
Experts want the authorities to do so much more in upholding the rights of citizens and bringing perpetrators of modern-day slavery to book.
We have laws, we have policies, but, effective implementation is the problem. So if we have these laws activated, reactivated, make them work, and also create jobs. The judiciary and other arms of the government, to take the issue of trafficking and forced labor as a serious matter. It is a serious matter because our young people, thousands of them are being killed.
Many here also believe that better economic condition for citizens is key to ensuring a reduction in cases of modern-day slavery. Kelechi Emekelam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
An innovator in Uganda has designed a portable ultrasound scanner. The maternal mortality rate in Uganda is among the highest in the world. However, many risk factors during pregnancy can be detected through an ultrasound scan. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga spoke with the new scanner's innovator.
A life-saving kit, this mobile ultrasound scan is designed to detect problems in pregnancy.
We saw mothers die because of complications related to pregnancy, and because of that problem statement, we came back, innovated and came up with ultrasound machines that can work on laptops, tablets and mobile phones.
The scanner is connected to a laptop installed with software to detect sound. In just 10 minutes, this mobile scanner will have detected complications in the mother. The innovators say it's cost-effective, timely, and offers quality treatment. They are hopeful that it will reduce maternal mortality in Uganda. The mobile ultrasound scanners are sold to private health facilities, and they are already saving lives.
Currently, we've scanned over 532 pregnant mothers. We've detected over 88 complications in pregnancy. We've referred 50% of these mothers, and on follow-up, all these mothers delivered successfully.
Uganda has got ultrasound scans at major referral hospitals, but they are not enough to meet the growing demand. The problem is much bigger in rural areas.
The ultrasound scan at this health unit occasionally breaks down, and they refer us to the regional referral hospital, which is far away from here.
The innovators are pushing to see that every pregnant mother gets 4 ultrasound scans during the course of pregnancy, and in the process, they hope to save more mothers' lives. Hilary Isga, CGTN, Kampala.
Well, I'll be standing by to bring you more news, including the latest in sport. But for now, let's take a look at the latest in business news with Rama.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Here's what's coming up in business. Somalia is one step closer to getting debt relief for its $5.3 billion debt load. And inflation in Sudan has gone over 64% in January, up from just over 57% at the end of 2019.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. The World Bank and the IMF are getting closer to agreeing to some debt relief for Somalia. The Horn of Africa nation has about $5.3 billion in outstanding debt. A deal could be agreed to as early as the end of March. Now, both international lenders do agree that Somalia is eligible for assistance under the Enhanced Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative. In return, though, the East African countries vowed to press ahead with a range of economic reforms. It's currently, in fact, in an IMF program. World Bank staff expect authorities in Somalia to present their plan for clearing arrears by the end of February. Somalia does hope to sign a debt relief package with the World Bank later this month, followed by a series of similar agreements with the African Development Bank as well as the IMF. Sudan's annual inflation rate soared to over 64% last month from just over 57% in the month of December, and that was mainly due to fast rising food prices. The State Statistics Agency says that Sudan's economy was hit hard when the south of the country seceded back in 2011. That essentially cost it 3/4 of its oil output, and it significantly reduced a crucial source of foreign currency earnings. Inflation has soared in recent years, driven by food, beverages, and a black market for US dollars as currency shortages started to bite. Shortages of bread and fuel, both of which are subsidized by the government, coupled with hefty price hikes, sparked protests that eventually led to the ouster of the then president, Omar Hassan al-Bashir, in April of 2019. The Northern Corridor, which starts from the Kenyan port city of Mombasa, has for a very long time been the preferred route for oil marketing companies to deliver petroleum products to Uganda. But delays resulting from congestion, restrictions on trucks and multiple clearance processes at the border are now combining to push businesses in Uganda to start using Tanzania's port of Dar es Salaam instead. CGTN's Michael Baleke takes up that story.
Oil dealers from Uganda are increasingly using Tanzania's Dar es Salaam harbour to load their fuel products. They say the terminal is efficient, reliable, and gets the products delivered on time.
Oil marketing companies, even with all the trucks, they can be able to go and load products in Dar es Salaam, since Tanzania government have not put so much restrictions on the loading. Also, you may find that Dar es Salaam trucks are allowed to load up to a maximum of the axle of 45,000 liters per truck. But Kenyan government cannot allow a truck to carry more than 40,000.
According to Ugandan oil marketers, the Kenyan route has been awash with allegations of tariff and non-tariff barriers. These range from bribery, fuel adulteration, smuggling, and restrictions on trucks over tonnage.
We have a more competitive advantage when it comes to costing of fuel from Kenya route versus Tanzania. But sometimes you have to consider the difference and weigh it against sustainability of supply, because a little more costed fuel could be a better option to no fuel at all.
The barriers to trade according to Kenya's Economic Survey 2019, led to a decline in the volume of petroleum exports from more than 844 tons in 2017 to 740 tons in 2018. Given the distance from Dar es Salaam to Kampala, it's still more expensive to deliver a litre of petrol, diesel or kerosene compared to Mombasa. And Kenya is using that advantage to reclaim the petroleum export market by attracting oil marketing companies in Uganda using lower tariffs. In October 2019, Nairobi cut its oil pipeline tariffs by 50%. The move has doubled petroleum export volumes destined to neighboring landlocked countries like Uganda.
They need to embrace private sector attitude. They need to ensure that customers are the king. I mean, they need to ensure at every time we want to load products, they are available, products are available, staff are available to work, and then also the Kenyan government needs to put measures that are favorable. They should discuss with transporters.
However, for security reasons, some Ugandan oil dealers still prefer to deliver products from both routes following a series of deadly attacks on Kenya by Somali militant group Al-Shabaab.
In order to maintain security of supply, we are not able to put all our eggs in one basket, if I'm to use that adage. So what is happening today is that we have to keep an option open in Tanzania to have fuel come into the country. So some oil marketers like Total Uganda have opted to take this position to bring fuel in through Tanzania to be able to ensure that there's a constant supply of fuel.
Figures from Uganda's Energy Ministry show that by September 2019, Uganda had imported 85 million litres of fuel. 90% of the petroleum products came through Kenya's port of Mombasa, while 10% arrived via Dar es Salaam port. And that figure is expected to rise as Tanzania increases efficiencies at the harbour. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Now, last night's State of the Nation address by the South African president offered only partial, at best, detail on key policy areas like electricity sector reforms, for instance. But it also pointed to a fairly weak outlook for the country's credit worthiness. That's according to the ratings agency Fitch. Now, the agency says that the speech was short on specifics and that may have reassured investors. During the annual address, Cyril Ramaphosa said that South Africa had to fix its strained public finances and procure a lot more renewable energy in order to end crippling power shortages. Even so, however, Fitch believes that the president's speech left some very important questions unanswered. The agency further pointed out that the government still is facing difficulties in implementing its agenda. Still in South Africa, trade unions are at odds over a plan to use pension funds to partially bail out Eskom. Now, the utility is forecast to make a loss of at least $1.3 billion just this year. And a combination of rising debts, a string of supply issues and a backlog of undone maintenance means it's struggling just to keep the lights on. Last week, COSATU, one of the country's largest labour unions, proposed that the government's Employees Pensions Fund, which is managed by the Public Investment Corporation, be used to keep the utility afloat. But other unions really don't like that idea. Here's CGTN's Sumitra Naidu explaining why.
Many thought the proposal was far-fetched until the president said he would consider it. Now that the matter is receiving serious attention, some unions are worried it may go ahead at the cost of millions of dollars that belong to employees.
The president does not actually have powers to approve it because the money that of public servants is held by the PIC, and the PIC will get a mandate from GPF on how they should do the investments. We already wrote to GPF, warned the chairperson of GPF to say that they must be careful how they're going to deal with this situation. Because if they are going to make a mistake and approve the utilization of the pension money in paying Eskom debt and there are no returns, those board members or trustees of GPF, we are going to take them one by one to court.
The PSA, which represents close to 250,000 workers, says it won't allow it. The Solidarity Union, with over 200,000 members, is also threatening legal action.
This call was made by COSATU, BUSA, Business Unity South Africa, say we support COSATU call. But they are not saying what are they bringing. It's because they know the money goes there in Eskom, it will not come back.
But COSATU believes using this money to save Eskom is in the interest of the entire nation.
If Eskom goes down, the whole economy will follow suit, and government will not be immune. The private sector will not be immune. Workers will pay the highest price. So ours is that let us agree that we are going to have this target of 250 billion. Then later on, once we have a principal agreement, then we can sit down and look at how do we divide that amongst all of the role players.
COSATU is proposing that $17 billion of government pension money be used to help shore up some of Eskom's debt. The debt equity swap will give workers shares in the power utility. The concern, though, is that Eskom has been mismanaged for so long and still needs a further $15 billion before it stabilizes financially. Will workers ever see a decent return, if any, on this investment? Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now on to matters away from the continent. The agreement which partially resolves the US-China trade conflict takes effect today, Friday, the 14th of February. It essentially means that some tariffs that the two countries imposed on one another will be either reduced or lifted. But for now, the United States has left the steepest tariffs firmly in place. The new coronavirus outbreak also means, however, that there will likely be an extra hurdle for some importers and exporters on both sides of the Pacific. As CGTN's Owen Feklo our reports.
Signed 1 month ago and now in force.
A transformative deal that will bring tremendous benefits to both countries.
And partially restoring normal service between the world's most important trading partners.
On the basis of equality and mutual respect, we have reached this Phase 1 trade agreement.
But leveling what President Trump deemed an unfair playing field comes at a cost. China is buying more US goods and services while improving both market access and intellectual property protection for American companies doing business there. In exchange, Washington is reducing and lifting some of the tariffs, effectively taxing the entire volume of Chinese imports into the US. But there's a huge caveat.
Whatever the merits of the first phase of this trade deal, tariffs of 25% still remain on around half China's imports into the United States. And President Trump says they'll only be removed if negotiations for a second phase are successful.
And if the current deal provides some trade relief, there's concern about the impact of shutdowns imposed by the coronavirus.
We haven't heard China ask yet for any special treatment or waiver of certain deadlines because of the outbreak, but we've heard Larry Kudlow and other advisors around the president suggest that China probably will, at least in the short term, struggle to reach some of its purchase commitments.
While China acknowledges any economic impact would spill over to other countries, it says enough is being done to minimize the fallout. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.
And I'll leave it there for the time being. Later on, though, at the top of the hour, we'll bring you a bit more analysis on how exactly this debt relief plan for Somalia will actually work. We'll be hearing the perspectives from the IMF, the World Bank, and of course, from Somalia itself. See you at 1800 GMT. For now, back to Hannah.
We'll see you in a bit, Rama. Thank you so much. Well, for now, let's take a short break, and in return, here's more news. South Africans go all out to appreciate their loved ones despite harsh economic realities.
The volcanic island of Reunion, rising over 300 meters from the ocean, is a hiker's paradise. Patrice Zulm is a local hiking guide who accompanies clients to remote parts of the island. His destinations include the Mafat Volcanic Circle, named after a leader of the so-called Moron, or escaped slaves. Reunion is increasingly threatened by overdevelopment, increased tourism, and overpopulation. Patrice is passionate about preserving the natural heritage of the island and strives to share the importance of this with others.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, how much would you spend on celebrating Valentine's Day? Well, despite tough economic times, South Africans are going all out to show the special people in their lives just how much they're appreciated. CGTN's Julie Shire tells us more.
The Valentine's Day spending frenzy is a boom for confectionery and flower businesses despite a tough economy. With love in the air, chocolates, roses and hearts are the order of the day.
People use this day to show affection to their loved ones, and these chocolates seem to do the trick.
So for me, I think it's lost its sort of moment of celebrating with loved ones, you know, because you go to a restaurant on Valentine's night and it's so busy and it gets so expensive. So I always come buy my kids like a little chocolate and my husband a chocolate, but that's about the most celebration we do on Valentine's Day.
For others, red roses remain the language of romance. Despite hefty price tags, requests have been flooding in for this startup florist run from a modest garage in Johannesburg.
My biggest order is 100 roses. I think every girl gets excited to be getting 100 roses. So I think she'll be very excited.
There may be fancy dinners and romantic getaways planned for later in the day, but most couples will be waking up to romantic spoils.
Valentine's Day is a very nice day where we have to show love to our partners. We have to celebrate it. It renews our love with our loved ones, to show them how much we love them, how deeply we love them from our hearts.
It's the most profitable time of the year for those in the flower industry, but some consider it a labor of love.
I hope my customers or whoever's receiving the flowers is happy. I hope they love it. I hope it gives them a smile. I hope that it gives them a sense of, happiness.
The spirit of love is very much alive in South Africa, and Valentine's Day is a chance to celebrate what's most dear in people's lives. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
We move to Uganda now, where people living with albinism are still regarded as outcasts in society. At times, they're even disowned by their families. But one young man with a skin condition has vowed to make a life through his music. CGTN Isabel Nakira has more on his efforts to overcome discrimination.
Peter Muntu wants the world to hear his Christian songs. But for now, many of his songs remain unrecorded because he's been shunned because of his skin color. Peter says he's faced discrimination in trying to promote his music.
People despising your work. Sometimes you give someone a song, man, you help me push this song. They don't give you time. Sometimes they chase you, you go away. Because they want money, you don't have money.
The 23-year-old gospel singer has so far recorded one album since he started singing in 2016. That's all he's been able to afford. But he remains positive that his music will one day be added to radio playlists around town.
They don't believe that I'm the one, because when they look at me, they despise. But when I sing to them, that's when they accept. When they look just at me and they listen to the song, they can't believe that I'm the one.
Peter dropped out of school when he was 13 years after his parents failed to pay his fees. But that's when his love for music started, and he began singing at a local church. Peter has grown his music career in this church. He's the lead pianist and also a member of the choir. He's performed on this stage and his music has received applause despite facing discrimination from parts of the public. Peter's music producer commends him for putting in a lot of effort to improve his music.
That person is different from other singers and artists because he's having a lot of ideas, and whereby his ideas, they are different to others.
There are slightly more than 4,000 people living with albinism, according to the campaign group Source of the Nile Union of Persons with Albinism. And many of them are trying to overcome discrimination and pursue their dreams. Peter is encouraging people with the same color like him not to shy away but hit the right notes in order to excel. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
It's sports news after the break. Here's what's coming up. CAF dismisses PricewaterhouseCoopers corruption report on misuse of funds.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa.